What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Edgar. So I recently came across this idea known as the do-nothing tendency. If you've never heard of it, the do-nothing tendency states that oftentimes when deciding to work on our goals or projects, we tend to be more bothered by the potential harm that comes from taking action than the certain harm that comes from inaction. So because of that, we tend to default to no action. Now, if that didn't make sense, don't worry, let me explain it like this. Say you're like me and you wanted to start a YouTube channel, but in doing so, you understand that there are some potential negative outcomes. You might look foolish, you might be judged, you might fail, or someone you know might find your channel and that would be super embarrassing, right? So these are all possibilities if you do take action. But on the flip side, if you do nothing, the negative outcome is that you'll never see what you're capable of and you will never know if this can actually have worked out in the long run. Now these are certainties. They're gonna happen if you don't take action. But for whatever reason, we let the first set of possibilities dictate our choices more so than these certain outcomes. I found this idea fascinating because I feel like in a way, it's tied to the fear of the unknown. Like, yes, we know what the possible negative outcomes are if we don't take action, but we don't know which one of those is gonna be for sure. Whereas if we don't take action, then we know exactly what's gonna happen. I mean, you're not gonna go anywhere, you're not gonna see what you're capable of, and even if it's way more negative in the long term, we'd rather go with the known outcome. There's probably also a timing element to this. Again, if we do take action and fail, then the embarrassment or shame or simply sadness will hit us immediately. Whereas on the flip side, if we don't do anything, then we may not feel the repercussions until we're like 70 years old and looking back at life with regret. And at that point, it may even be too late to start doing it. But because we're creatures of avoidance and always want the path of least resistance, we'd rather skip out on some discomfort now and face major discomfort later on down the line whenever it hits us. Now, I shouldn't have to tell you why it's so bad to make decisions this way. I mean, everything that I've talked about up until this point kind of explains why. But to really drive the point home, if you always default to no action, you will end up living a life full of regrets and will never actually see how much you are capable of. I mean, think about it. How many super successful people have you heard say something like, "Oh, I really wish that I played it safe and just took less chances on myself"? Personally, I don't want you to be an old, grumpy, regretful person, so here are a few actionable tips that you can implement into your life today to stop defaulting to no action. Real quick though, if you're enjoying this video, consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, quick disclaimer, we're currently in a heat wave where I'm from, so if you're hearing a hum in the background the whole time, I have the fan on, I'm sorry, I can't do this, deal with it. Okay, tip number 1, remember the spotlight effect. For those of you that don't know what that is, the spotlight effect is a psychological phenomenon in which we tend to think people are paying way more attention to us than they actually are. Listen y'all, aside from me, nobody gives a shit about you, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. Everyone has their own lives, their own focuses, their own worries. They're not spending their time thinking about you or worried about what you are doing. They don't care if you're writing songs, they don't care if you're making some shitty little YouTube videos, they don't care if you got a brand new job. I mean, it's the truth, they have their own lives. You've got to remember that you're only the main character in your own story, and you're a side character in everybody else's. So again, nobody's even paying attention to you, but even if they are, so what? It's embarrassing? I mean, embarrassment lasts a few minutes at the most, and truthfully their opinions don't even matter because, like I said, they're side characters in your story. So if embarrassment or just the fear that people are watching you is what's holding you back from achieving your dreams or getting started on them, then I want you to remember this great quote by boxer turned writer Ed Lattimore. Embarrassment is the cost of entry. If you aren't willing to look like the foolish beginner, you will never be the graceful master. What else is there to say? Okay, tip number 2, implement the 5-second rule. No, I'm not talking about the rule where you drop food and you can eat it as long as you pick it up within 5 seconds, although that's a great rule to boost the immune system. I'm not a doctor, don't quote me on that. No, the rule that I'm talking about goes like this. If there's something you know you need to get done, but you're just defaulting to no action, you know you have no motivation, or you just simply don't feel like it, but you know you need to get it done, then what you need to do is count from 5 down to 0 and then get started as soon as you hit 0. Honestly, I do this quite a bit on days that I'm editing because I really just don't feel like it sometimes, but I'm gonna have to upload every Saturday, right? So I gotta get this shit done. This really helps though because it sort of gamifies the situation, right? I mean, countdowns are symbolic for fun and exciting things, you know, like big reveals or rocket ship takeoffs and bombs, but that's besides the point. But because it makes the action seem kind of fun and exciting with the countdown, then it puts you in the right mindset to get started. Plus, since you know you have to get started at 0, it leaves no room for excuses, because at 0, you better get going. Okay, tip number 3, implement the 2-minute rule. Yeah, I know this is another one with a time limit, but I promise it's very different. This rule simply states, if you have something you need to do, and again, you're just not taking action on it, think about, will this take me less than 2 minutes? If so, get it done. Again, I use this a lot in relation to editing because sometimes I'm in the middle of a session and I realize that I need a specific shot of B-roll, and I just don't feel like getting up and getting it. I have all the tools I need to do it, but I just don't want to. And honestly, this is just plain lazy on my part because oftentimes it really can take less than 2 minutes and it's holding up my editing process. So if I just get up off my ass, get the shot, then I can get right back into it. And this doesn't have to be just for your goals, right? I mean, it can be applied to all areas of life. Don't feel like making the bed? Don't feel like cleaning your room? Don't feel like putting away a jacket? Is it going to take less than 2 minutes? Yeah, so get it done. If you decide to do this, I think you'll be surprised with how many tasks you can actually get done in under 2 minutes if you really focus in and just get them done. So the other great thing about it is that as you start, deducting these tasks, like 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, you'll end up with like half an hour to 45 minutes worth of tasks completed simply because you asked yourself, will this take me less than 2 minutes? And then did it. Truthfully, this rule just creates positive habits overall. So try it out and then come back here and leave a comment about how it went. Okay, tip number 4, don't let yourself have 0 days. And by 0 days, I mean a day in which you do absolutely nothing towards your goals, 0 work. Now, inevitably, you will have those days. There's going to be a time where you just have no motivation or drive to, take action. But these are the days when it's most important to get something, anything done. And it doesn't have to be much, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as much as you can muster. Because oftentimes, you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes because I don't feel like doing it. But once you get started, you're going to get into a rhythm and you're not going to want to stop. But even if you do stop after 5 minutes, the important thing is that you will not have a 0 day. You see, in order to stay consistent, you want to create a daily habit of wins. And at the end of the day, any amount of work is better than no work. I actually have an entire video on this subject, so if you want to learn more, consider checking that out next. But with that, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.